All right, so are you ready for this one? Because this deep dive is going to take us into a real-life nightmare.
Oh, yeah. I think everyone has made prank calls as a kid, right? But what happens when one of those goes really wrong?
Exactly, and that's what we're looking at today.
Yeah, and what's really interesting here is that it makes you think about safety. We think we're totally safe in our homes, but this story shows just how quickly that can change.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Our source material is a first-hand account from a 15-year-old who lived through this night of terror, and it all started with a prank call.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's almost worse. They're home alone for the weekend, just a normal teenage sleepover.
Right? Just two friends hanging out.
And it's interesting how that setting, which should feel safe, almost becomes like a trap as the story goes on.
Yeah.
It becomes
Yeah.
part of the story itself, like another character almost.
Totally. It's Friday night junk food video games, and they're making these random prank
Just
calls.
cracking up at their own jokes, completely oblivious.
Exactly. And then the narrator dials this random number,
Oh.
and this guy picks up with this really deep, gravelly voice. Kind of creepy right off the bat.
Yeah, you can already sense that something's not right.
The narrator gets nervous and just asks if he can borrow a car wheel.
Wait, a car wheel? Even the prank itself is a little strange, right? Like maybe he subconsciously knows something's off?
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it like that. And it gets even weirder because then the guy on the other end asks for the narrator by name.
Whoa, okay, that's not good.
So he panics and gives a fake name.
Right. Trying to stay anonymous.
But then the guy goes, "Really? You sure it's not Anthony?"
Oh my God. That's like straight out of a horror movie.
I know, right? Talk about fight or flight kicking in.
They're not just pranksters anymore. They've been identified.
And they have absolutely no idea how this guy knows Anthony's name.
That's the worst part, the not knowing.
They hang up, obviously completely freaked out, and spend the next hour trying to find an explanation, looking through caller ID, searching online. But nothing.
It's like that need we all have to try and make sense of things, especially when we're scared. But sometimes there just isn't an answer.
Right, and it shows you how little control we have sometimes. Even in situations that should be totally normal, they try to distract themselves by watching a movie.
Oh, I bet they couldn't focus at all.
No way. The tension is so thick,
You just know something bad's gonna happen.
and then they hear the front storm door creaking open.
No.
The narrator peeks through the blinds and sees this tall, shadowy figure staring right at the house.
It's like he wants them to know he's there.
And when their eyes meet, the figure turns his head like he knows he's been spotted.
That's such a creepy detail. It's like a silent acknowledgement that things are about to get really bad. This isn't just someone walking by, this is deliberate.
Oh yeah, and it gets worse. They realize the back gate is open, the back door's unlocked, and there's another silhouette peering in.
So they're trapped.
They're completely trapped. The house isn't safe anymore. It's like a cage.
I wonder what they do. What stands out to you about their reaction?
Well, they don't freeze up completely, which is amazing considering what they're dealing with. They decide to run.
It's that fight or flight instinct, right?
Exactly. It's like their bodies just take over, and they're not just running anywhere. They head straight for Anthony's bedroom.
Oh, so they're going somewhere familiar.
Yeah, maybe thinking they can use that to their advantage.
It's amazing, though, isn't it, how this ordinary place, a teenager's bedroom, suddenly becomes the setting for this terrifying situation?
Yeah, it's like those horror movies where the most normal, everyday things become scary.
Exactly like the monster hiding in plain sight.
Okay, so they get to the bedroom, but they need a better hiding place.
Right, think about it. Their whole world is just this one room now. Every little sound, every shadow could be the intruder. It must be so overwhelming.
And their choices are limited. They end up hiding under Anthony's bed.
Oh, wow. That's like a classic childhood fear coming to life.
Except this time it's not a game at all.
No, not at all. They're literally trying to disappear, to become invisible. It's like a basic human need, that desire for safety and security.
So they're huddled under this bed, trying to be quiet, trying to listen for any sign of the intruder.
I can't even imagine the tension.
It must be unbearable, just waiting and listening.
It's almost like a form of torture, isn't it? That anticipation, knowing the danger is close, but not knowing when or how it's going to happen.
And then they hear footsteps. Heavy footsteps coming down the hallway.
Oh gosh, it's like a countdown.
I know, they're trying so hard to be silent,
Hmm.
but then Anthony lets out this little sob. He can't help it.
That's what gives me, they're still kids, They're being
Yeah.
so brave, but that little sob shows how scared they really are.
And that's what gives him away. The intruder rips the bedskirt off and drags Anthony out by his ankle.
This is awful.
But the narrator, he doesn't just give up. He grabs a screwdriver and attacks the guy.
Wow, that's incredible. He could have just frozen, but he fights back.
He manages to get a good jab in, and that gives them the chance to run. They get out of the house and head straight into the woods with the intruder right behind them.
So now the woods become part of the story, too.
It's like they've gone from one scary situation to another.
Yeah, the woods are dark and confusing, and who knows what's out there.
They're just running on pure adrenaline, and they can hear the intruder crashing through the woods behind them.
That must be terrifying, like something out of a nightmare.
Finally, they find some bushes to hide behind, trying to catch their breath, trying to figure out what to do.
And then what? It gets quiet.
Everything goes silent.
That silence must be deafening after all the noise and chaos. What do you think's going through their minds?
I mean, it has to be a mix of relief that they got away,
Yeah.
but also still terrified.
Right, and that quiet you mentioned, it's not peaceful. It's like they're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah, expecting him to jump out at any second. Do they stay in the woods or go back to the house?
Well, according to this story, they eventually decide to go back, which is risky, of course.
Oh, yeah, be out in the open like that.
Right, but maybe the house felt safer even after everything that happened there.
I guess it's still familiar, I can't even imagine walking back knowing he could be anywhere.
It really messes with your sense of safety, like your whole world has been turned upside down.
Everything you thought you knew is gone.
Yeah, and even though they got away, the fear stays with you. You start seeing danger everywhere.
Okay, so they get back to the house then.
The first thing they do is lock all the doors and windows.
Of course. Trying to feel safe again.
Yeah, like they're trying to take back some control after feeling so helpless. And then they call the police.
Finally, they can tell someone what happened.
It's like the first step towards getting help processing everything. But get this, the police don't find anything.
No sign of the intruder.
Absolutely nothing. He just disappeared. And that's what's so creepy about this whole thing. 5 years later, and they still have no answers.
What about how he knew Anthony's name?
That's still a mystery, too. The police looked into everything, but there was no explanation. It could have been a coincidence. I mean, a truly terrifying one, or something much worse.
But we just don't know.
We don't know, and that's what makes it so unsettling. It makes you think about how vulnerable we all are.
This has been a wild deep dive.
Right.
Really creepy, but also makes you think.
It definitely shows how even something that seems harmless can go so wrong, and how important it is to be aware of your surroundings. Trust your gut feeling if something feels off.
And talk about it. Don't keep it bottled up if something like this happens to you.
Absolutely. Well said. I think that's a good place to wrap up our deep dive into this terrifying true story.
Until next time, everyone stay safe and stay curious.